Jeff sitting in for Jan. This is News Radio 1040 WHO. Pleased to welcome in this segment to the News Radio 1040 WHO Newsmakers line, grief counselor Veronica Sites. She is volunteering her time in the Dallas area and in regard to the tragic events there, and so pleased that she took the time to talk to us this morning. Veronica, good morning. Thanks for joining me on WHO.
Good morning. Thank you.
Let me just ask you a general question, because even since you and I emailed back and forth this weekend, we've had Baton Rouge. Is there just a point where people, this kind of barrage of bad news starts to affect people's sense of well-being in general?
It does, and it's impossible for us to think that it would not, simply on the basis of we're not even having time to process and regroup before we're hit with another situation. So the general public really needs to understand that we're getting hit. It's like a gut punch in an ugly scrap fight.
Yeah.
You're getting hit. You've got to give your body time to regroup, breathe, establish what is the new normal in light of all of the stuff that's going on. And right now we are at a high risk of different types of stress. Compassion fatigue is a big component of that, because we're seeing it over and over in the media.
That's what I was interested in asking you about, Veronica, because on social media, so many of my friends are simply posting, "I just don't know what to say anymore." Talk to me a little bit about this concept of compassion fatigue. What is it?
Compassion fatigue is repeated exposure and high intensity levels of stress that do not have the opportunity for a person to deal with them. For example, the things, we had Dallas, and now we've got Baton Rouge, and you've got things going on in Nice and in Russia. You've got stuff going on that people are lacking for words, because when grief becomes so intense, it's very easy to be so overwhelmed and flooded with a barrage of emotions that it's hard to put your finger on it, let alone name what you're feeling, because it's chaos on the inside,
right? Just
like it is on the outside that we're dealing with.
And so, Veronica, you've been offering your services in the Dallas area. When someone comes to you, what do they want from you? Is there one particular thing, or is it vary by person?
You know what? The general population wants to get back to normal. And that is one of my heartbreaking moments, because I get to tell them, okay, let's take a big deep breath for just a moment. This is what we want, but let's wrap our mind around what we are dealing with right now. We can't go back to what normal was. It did change. However, I can help you determine what a new normal in light of the circumstances can be, but it's completely up to the individual, and it does take some, education, insight, and self-implementation of how to listen to your body's needs. Your body really will speak to you, and I know that it's hard to understand that, but people that are losing sleep, not eating right, they're foggy in their mind, unable to concentrate. Performance at work is starting to wane. It always has a root that goes back to some traumatic event. And the reason I volunteer my time is because if we can catch that on the front end, it does not have to get to the extreme extent of severe post-traumatic stress disorder. And what goes neglected can spiral to that end. And we've got a hotbed right now. It's the perfect storm right now for our society to be overstressed, and it can come anywhere from weeks, months, or years from now. But it's important to take care of yourself now.
And I wonder, Veronica, well, let me tell you a personal experience that I had this weekend. I was having dinner with my parents, and they had the television news on in the background. And I said, can I turn that off while we're eating? Is there just a certain amount of respite that you have to give yourself from hearing about these events?
Absolutely, and you did a wise thing to turn it off.
Thanks. I'm a good son.
Yeah, very, very wise. I often am concerned about our journalists and people in media that are reporting all of this because it is constant exposure. And there again, myself, I'll just give you an example. Yesterday was National Ice Cream Day, and you just have to step back, have some fun, and give yourself permission to lighten up because the body really will feel it. I was starting to feel, stress in my neck, and I thought, okay, I'm coping, and every day I as well implement the things that I tell people is helpful. But at the same time, after a period of time, I've learned to recognize what my body is saying to me, and therefore it's like, okay, it's time to, all media off, no social media. It's all, we're going to go to the country, we're going to jump in the water, we're going to do something that just it unplugs me. It unplugs me from all of the media coming into my mind.
Is there one thing when you said you want to address the problem early with people, what's the first thing that you want to do when people come to you and they're stressed out?
I want them to understand that under the circumstances, what they are experiencing, it doesn't matter what they are experiencing. Under the circumstances, it's normal to feel, whether it's A, B, or C. There's a lot of factors that lead up to that moment, but just to help them understand they're not going crazy.
That is a great way to end this interview. Grief counselor Veronica Sites, thanks for your work in the Dallas area. Thanks for taking the time today. We'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.